everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Perfect Blend podcast. And this is a special package of my podcast called the Pride Series. This is episode 3, and I'm so excited to have our guest with us here today, Mare, who is one of the co-founders of UrBody, which is a gender-affirming clothing brand that they started with their other founder. And remind me of the second founder's name again. I'm so sorry about that. Anna, yes. And both of them started this wonderful, wonderful, all-inclusive brand for gender-affirming clothing. And just a little bit about UrBody. UrBody is a trans, queer, woman-owned brand started by two longtime friends committed to redefining gender and body norms in the fashion industry while expanding access to gender-inclusive functional garments designed for self-expression and body affirmation. They serve the entire gender spectrum and create fit templates tailored to the bodies and needs of all human beings, including trans, non-binary, and gender non-conforming folks. Each of their styles is infused with the community feedback they gather at every stage of the design process. They have firsthand experience with the struggles of finding base layers that both express who individuals are and how to make specific clothing fit their bodies. They believe that clients deserve to get dressed with confidence, starting with what's underneath. Underwear and clothing are essential tools that is designed with intention and can have a positive impact on body image, mental health, and self-esteem, which is what UrBody is about. So thank you so much, Mare, for being here. And I know that you have a lot of other hats and titles, so feel free to share anything that I may have left out in regards to you and who you are.
Well, thank you for having me, Kaleef. As you mentioned, I'm Mare Abrams. I use they, them pronouns. I'm the co-founder of UrBody. I'm also a licensed therapist, mental health professional, and have a background in research and writing. I've been working in nonprofits with queer and trans young people and their families for over a decade now. And so UrBody and this gender-affirming fashion company is really a culmination of the community knowledge and the relationships that I've built in over a decade of doing this work and recognizing that trans folks deserve options just like everyone else has. And it's about time that the fashion industry step outside of these hetero norms, the cisgender body norms, and start really serving our community. And so, I really take a health-informed approach to fashion, thinking about the way fashion informs how we feel emotionally and physically. And so that's a bit about me and UrBody.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. Just to clarify, UrBody was created in 2021, correct?
That is correct. We launched in March of 2021.
So what inspired, right along with what you just shared, what inspired you and Anna to launch UrBody Co? What did you feel was missing? Like what brought that to the forefront for the both of you?
My personal struggles finding garments that both fit my body and expressed who I was, and also as a therapist, seeing my clients and my community have those same struggles. And around 2019, Anna and I started just having some conversations. She worked in the fashion industry and has been kind of like in that industry her whole life. And so I came to her and said, why are we so stuck in 1950 when it comes to fashion? Like, why are there like two fit templates and everyone assumes that like if you're gonna wear mask clothes you have a certain body type, and if we're gonna wear femme clothes you have a certain body type. We're not going to design for all bodies. And she really like broke it down for me, and we have started having conversations about like where we felt like the industry should be, given it was 2019 and trans representation was really gaining momentum, and like folks just weren't being served appropriately. Brands were having trans folks be the face of their campaigns, but the garments they were creating weren't actually made with trans people's needs in mind. And I have with that. So I said it's about time for a brand to exist that really like humanizes the trans experience, and also really caters to their needs. Because personally shopping, I like never necessarily felt like the clothing that spoke to me like catered to my needs or my body type. You know, I was trying to
Mm.
flip my wide hips into a pair of men's jeans, or, you know, have a shirt fit me incorrectly because I'm shorter than the average cisgender man. And so
Right.
I think that really impacted how I felt about my body, and my gender over time, making me feel like things about my body were wrong when really it's like industry standards and body standards are wrong. My body's just fine.
I love that you said industry standards and body standards are wrong. My body's just fine, because me being a trans femme as well, a trans woman, you know, clothing and gender affirming clothing is very essential, right? How we show up and what we wear inspires our confidence level with self, our self-esteem, and our ability to feel aligned, right? It's like you won't feel aligned if your clothing doesn't fit correctly. You won't feel aligned if you feel like you look frumpy, or if you feel like something is too big or too, you know, so it's really important that you said that. Now, to move the conversation along, we see what's going on with Pride Month right now, right? And you and I chatted about this, and we wanted to chat about just a few of the recent happenings going on in pop culture. But I wanted to start this off first with let's define rainbow capitalism, because that's a term that you actually brought to the forefront. And I was like, huh, rainbow capitalism. So for the people who are watching this or probably listening, we all probably have a basic understanding of the definition of what capitalism is, right? That's something in which a corporation does something to have monetary or like profit or some type of profitable gain, right? There's usually some type of private owners involved and so forth. Do you want to take a stab at breaking down rainbow capitalism with me, Mayor?
Sure. I think rainbow capitalism has evolved, but my understanding of its origins is it originally was a term that was used to describe capitalism's effort to capture the LGBTQ market. So once LGBTQ people were recognized as a group, and not just as a marginalized group, but a group that is growing in population, capitalism recognized that there was a certain amount of buying power within that community. And so
Mhm.
it would be in their best interest to cater to that community and celebrate that community in some way, shape, or form in order to get them to buy from them and, you know, profit from the LGBTQ community. And so we started seeing a lot of this. I mean, it's been happening. I think originally, actually, it was called pink capitalism before it was called rainbow
Yes, before they
capitalism.
changed it to rainbow capitalism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, but I think of recent, it's been this notion that like these big corporations kind of like change their logos to rainbow for Pride Month, or they have a contingent marching in the Pride Parade, or they put a rainbow on something that doesn't necessarily cater to the needs of the community or push the community's priorities and needs forward. But it really is more about capitalism and more about like, how do we get the LGBT community to buy from us? That said, we've seen strides, and we have
And just to touch on, sorry to interrupt, it was called pink washing at
pink
first.
washing,
That's
yes.
what it was called first. But continue, sir. Yes.
Yeah, and so it was kind of, you know, an effort that was like
Done to capitalize.
yeah, it was meant to capitalize off of the community, and it didn't really make systemic change. And I think
Mm,
that is where we're coming back to with rainbow capitalism is, you know,
mm.
capitalism is getting more savvy as time goes on. And now
Right.
it is, you know, and queer and trans folks and LGBTQ folks are savvy too. And they know just because a rainbow is on something doesn't mean I'm just going to support it. And that
Right.
made for me, I kind of see past the superficiality of just like putting a rainbow on something. Maybe there's a performative nature to that. But
Mhm.
really, like, how are you giving back to trans causes? How are you supporting Black trans femmes? How are you fighting against all this anti-LGBT and anti-trans
Legislation.
legislation? How are you
Yeah.
creating jobs for trans folks? What is the culture of your company look like? And what is the experience of folks who are transgender, diverse, or LGBTQ in your company. Like, so these are all like systemic things that could be happening. And they are in some companies, but I think overall rainbow capitalism is a term used to like show performative and superficial attempts
Performative allyship, yeah.
to get profit from the LGBT community and really, you know, capture their share of the LGBTQ market.
Perfect. That's the perfect segue into what's going on. We saw recent examples with Starbucks. Starbucks had a situation in New York City in which they were removing pride decorations from popular LGBTQ neighborhoods in New York City, such as what's I think it's Chelsea. Chelsea. Yeah. What's the name of it's a certain neighborhood in New York City. Hold on. It's like an LGBTQ specific neighborhood where Stonewall took place. I can't think of the name of that neighborhood. Is it Chelsea Village? Is that what it
The
is?
village, yeah, the
The
east
Village.
the yeah
Chelsea and Greenwich Village. Yeah. So certain Starbucks individuals are noticing that pride decorations are being removed, and Starbucks companies are doing that in New York specifically. It's like Starbucks location. Sorry about that. So what do you think that that's about? Because I was under the impression that brands wanted to have, you know, rainbow decorations and you know, symbols and things of that nature to show, hey, we are inclusive, or hey, this company supports pride and so forth. And, you know, we want that that allyship, you know, allyship recognition and so forth. What are your thoughts on that? I hope that made sense.
I
I was
think it's one example of these larger corporations kind of caving to right-wing Republican pressure. You know, I think Starbucks is one of multiple corporations and brands and people will probably touch on in this conversation that are their behavior around pride is different than in past years. And I think the article that I saw about the Starbucks pride decor being removed, like they were claiming that it was in the best interest of their employees and was going to keep the employees safe. But I think that that is a narrative that we're hearing from some of these larger corporations more commonly. And I think it does have to do with really thinking about your stakeholders and your customers and who you're serving. And I believe that these corporations are under the impression that there's potentially a large part of their constituency and stakeholder and customers that are anti-trans and LGBTQ. And while maybe 5-10 years ago, these companies thought that it was going to be profitable to be an LGBTQ ally, they're now questioning that. And they're saying, are we going to lose this customer by having this rainbow here? Is there more to lose than there is to gain in this situation? And I think that we're seeing capitalism win. I think that, you know, unfortunately, due to some of the recent events, like
LA Dodgers, where they removed their allegiance with the Perpetual Sisters of Indulgence, the drag collective. And then, you know, the Los Angeles LGBT Center wrote a statement, and the LA Dodgers, because the Los Angeles LGBT Center supports LA Dodgers, you know, they do a lot of great work together. And then the Dodgers reinstated their allyship with the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, I believe that's what they're called, the drag collective here in Los Angeles. So that's one interesting example that has happened literally locally here in LA.
And I think it's
and we have another example with
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Well, I was going to say that in LA, I think a great demonstration of, you know, like there was right-wing religious uproar about the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence being honored. The Dodgers said to themselves, like, we don't want to lose our Catholic fans. You know, that's what was going through their mind when they disinvited them to the Pride Night and to be honored. And then when the LA LGBT Center and all these other people go out, they really had to do this like cost benefit analysis of like,
to figure out what's going to happen.
Who who would we rather lose? You know, the Catholics and the right-wing religious people who are protesting the perpetual sisters of indulgence participation, or
Right.
the LGBTQ plus community? And I think we saw what happened with the Dodgers, where then they put out a statement and they did honor the sisters of perpetual indulgence. They had them back. And so there was this kind of moment where I think the LA Dodgers like had to see that maybe, and they decided maybe there was more to gain by being an ally in the situation than there was to lose. But then we look at folks like Target, we look at folks like Bud Light, we look at some of these
Mhm.
other brands that are going through this same kind of like behind the scenes, probably discussion of like, what is at risk by being an LGBTQ ally? What do we have to lose and what do we have to gain? And really, I
Well,
think
well,
that's where rainbow capitalism is at right now. And these
yeah.
businesses that have been like really like gung ho about pride, or for the first time this year being like, wait, are we like gonna lose something by doing this?
Well, you know what's so interesting with the you brought up Bud Light just now with the whole issue with Dylan, the famous trans TikToker, who recently became known, for allowing TikTok viewers to follow her journey, as a trans woman in her transition, right? She gained notoriety for that. And then she was offered a deal to be an ambassador of sorts for Bud Light, right? And it actually backfired, because it backfired in regards to Bud Light thinking that being inclusive by using Dylan and Dylan's imagery and liking and co-sign of the beer brand, that would garner like more success, for Pride Month and so forth, or in preparation for Pride. And it was actually like the opposite that occurred. Like conservatives were so upset that Dylan was selected to be the face of Bud Light and promote Bud Light, her being a trans woman, a white trans woman at that, right? So it was interesting because Bud Light lost millions of dollars because of that. I believe that's true, allegedly. They lost a lot of money at stake because of Dylan's representation of representing the trans community with the product of Bud Light. Right. So it's interesting how it kind of backfired. But Dylan still got paid for it. She doesn't care. She got the check. You know what I mean? But yeah, so it's interesting how with the Bud Light situation that actually, backfired in a weird way. It didn't really work out for the whole Pride allyship situation for Bud Light. And then when you think about Target, for Target, it actually backfired as well. Because this past month, right, didn't Target have a situation where they had gender affirming swimwear for children, correct? Or youth,
I think they just had gender affirming garments
bathing
in general.
garment.
I
Yeah,
actually I don't know the specifics of like the size range that it went to, but I know how it was being portrayed in the media. And I did see
right.
in the media it was being portrayed as if that they were selling gender affirming garments such as tucking
To
garments,
children.
binders
Mhm.
to children. I don't know
Mhm.
that that's actually true. I think that
Right.
it actually was just trying to carry things that support the community in the ways that we kind of talked about earlier. Why gender affirming
Mhm.
garments are important, and maybe
Mhm.
why is it important? Why is it a good thing that Target recognizes that gender affirming garments might be like a more impactful way to acknowledge pride than just slapping a rainbow on something, right? And
Mm.
like access to gender affirming garments. I know when I was first looking for a gender affirming garment, the thought of going into a brick and mortar store, let alone a mainstream brick and mortar store, and being able to find what I was looking for was a pipe dream. So, I
Where could you define brick and mortar for the
like
audience?
just like an actual store you walk into versus an online store, right?
Right, right, right. A physical store.
So yeah, like if I was gonna go look for like packing underwear or chest binder, like there wasn't like a store I was gonna walk
That
in.
doesn't exist at
Yeah,
stores.
and so I think Target recognized like the importance of offering gender affirming garments and get increasing access. And I think Target it's unfortunate that they kind of responded to this situation in the way they did, because I do believe Target up until this Pride was kind of like modeling how to really center
How
small
to have allyship.
queer-owned businesses during
Mhm.
Pride Month. I mean, they kind of like give up their space to center queer and trans-owned small businesses
That's
and really
beautiful.
allow those businesses to be carried in like a big store nationwide. And I think that that's like a really like wonderful way to approach your pride celebration, and how we all think about how we're taking up space, right? And I think
Mhm.
give space to the community is what Target has historically done. But then the way they responded to the reaction to this year's Pride collection really, I think, made a lot of us question their allyship to the community.
So, so of course, conservatives were going to use children as a scapegoat, right, in regards to the Target clothing, gender affirming clothing conversation, right? That on social media, I saw a lot of fear mongering of like, oh my God, they're influencing children to bind their chest or tuck and so forth. Why are they doing this to the children? That was a lot of the scapegoating that continually happens, right? What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that is that it is a right-wing tactic to focus in on the children. I think when it comes to the practices of like tucking and binding and accessing gender affirming garments, that's a decision that should be between a child, their parents, and maybe their medical provider. Um, I don't think other people should be weighing in on those things. I know when I walk through a Target, there's plenty of things that I walk by that just aren't for me. And so when I saw all this going around on social media, I was like, why do people care so much? Like there's so many things that just like aren't for them. If this doesn't speak to them, if this doesn't align with their values, like just keep walking. Why
Right.
would we hone in on it? I think that we have, where we live in the world where there's a lot of human diversity, there's a lot of family diversity. There are children with queer and trans parents. I mean, to try and isolate queer and trans people, queer and trans issues, queer and trans topics from a family or child oriented space, I think is just like unrealistic and not rooted in the world we live in today. I mean, I have a 3-year-old, and he's growing up with queer parents. Like that's the world
Mhm.
that he lives in, that's the family he's in. And so for
Mhm.
him not to have access to like a shirt that celebrates his family, or a book that has like a non-binary parent in it, I think it's just like we should have things that reflect the human beings that live in our world, and that's all this is.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now to move on a little bit more about pop culture, influencers, and so forth. How, when we speak of pop culture, how are celebrities, musicians, and influencers hindering and or helping capitalism? Wait, is that the right way to say that? How are they contributing to capitalism and or fighting against rainbow capitalism in regards to what we see with celebrities, musicians, and influencers? That's a better way to ask that. I hope you follow. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense. And
Right.
I like to break down those binaries because I think that like we all got to get paid, right? Our communities got to get
Everyone has
paid.
to get a coin somewhere when we talk
So,
about this. Let's get some money.
I even saw like a post from someone named Fran recently that talked about how like their community like wasn't getting hired as much this Pride season, and it's just like I think that there is a important role for community members to play in helping big brands celebrate Pride, and to helping big brands kind of like speak to the LGBTQ plus community and meet the community's needs. And I believe that, again, we all need to make a living to support ourselves and our families. And so there's like that piece of it. And then I think there's like the piece of it where we can all be like real and transparent about whether we're like supporting the community or we're furthering a brand or company's self-interests. And that's all, like that's okay. We live in a capitalist environment. And so when we see like one of our favorite content creators do an ad,
Mhm.
it's like they're getting paid and they're like pushing this brand that wants to become more profitable. And there's, to an extent, nothing wrong with that. That's the world we live in. Let's not pretend that's like changing the lives of the most marginalized people in our community, because it's not. If anything, it might be putting a little bit more of a target on their back. I think this year around Trans Day of Disability, we saw a lot of conversations about how visibility is dangerous without adequate protection and education and advocacy. So, you know, I think that that's a piece of the puzzle that has to be kind of considered when thinking about the role of content creators and even just, you know, like celebrities speaking about trans issues and making trans people more visible, brands making trans people more visible. Is, are you doing the work to create an environment that's like safe for them behind the scenes? Are you doing the work to like fight this legislation behind the scenes, or do you really just want to like put someone up on a billboard? So I think those are some of the tensions there. And I know
we have to break down and unpack. Like, are you hiring trans and non-binary staff? Are you providing resources? Are you contributing to housing, education? Are you familiarizing yourself with current anti-LGBTQ legislation as you are, you know, capitalizing off of Pride Month and capitalizing off of LGBTQ influencers and faces?
Yeah, and like, who are you centering? Because I think it's like great to be a spokesperson.
The same people get censored every year. To me, I feel like they always select like the same few people to get censored, honestly.
They do, but I think that there are some celebrities, like I know, you know, Beyonce for her new tour is making all of like the bathrooms gender inclusive. And I think that that's like a really, like, I mean, I think it's awesome because it's like a systemic way that just makes her concerts safer and more accessible to trans people. But she's not taking up more space as a result. Like, she's not becoming a spokesperson for trans issues. Like, she's just making systemic changes that actually like speak to the safety and needs and comfort of trans folks. Like, she doesn't have to get on stage and wave a flag. You know, are celebrities that do that, and like
she's putting her money where her mouth is.
She's really like changing policies and changing practices in the best interests of this community. And I think there's a difference between taking up space and waving a flag and not doing the stuff behind the scenes, and there is doing that and doing the things behind the scenes, or not at all, right?
And to speak on her changing policy, the gag is that she's actually doing that in North Carolina for her North Carolina show here in the US. And we all know that North Carolina has the they have a lot of the anti-trans legislation going on with the bathroom conversation right now, you know, in this country. So for Beyonce to say, hey, we're gonna do gender neutral bathrooms in North Carolina, you know, for that particular show, is a gag. That's strategic. That's strategy, right? So,
and it's like not making it about her. She's like, it's not about me. It's not about me being the best.
It's about my fans.
For the space that I'm taking up. It's literally just about my fans and being able to show up, and also to demonstrate what gender inclusive practices look like in places where we're getting a lot of pushback and you know, passive anti-trans legislation.
You know, and honestly, celebrities like her, that's like a really clever way to really put things into action versus just hiring an influencer or hiring someone from the community and say, here, you're the face of this brand, which does help because, you know, I do feel that representation does matter in some way, shape, or form. It's a double-edged sword. Visibility is a double-edged sword because, you know, there are individuals and youth who do need to see people who look like them, right? They need to see that. I think that's the positive of representation, or visibility, but also the negative of that is the backlash that's often done to individuals who are not influencers, to individuals who are direct service workers in LGBTQ spaces, right? Or their clients of these particular nonprofits and organizations that contribute to homelessness and things of that nature for LGBTQ youth in specific, right? So I think that's a double-edged sword. Let's take it to other influencers and artists. Is there anyone else that you could think of that you want to bring to the forefront?
I'm trying to think. Well, I know like Madonna is going on tour with Bob the Drag Queen, and I think
yes.
Pretty awesome. You know,
it was a good look. Yeah.
Anti-drag stuff going on for an artist that's like multi-generational artist that's attracting people to our concerts of lots of ages, races, genders, to be bringing like a Black femme and drag queen, Bob the Drag
Mhm.
Queen of all people, on tour is like a pretty great statement. And again, like she's using her platform to give space to community members and also to make sure folks know, you know, like we exist and we're gonna exist in all of these places no matter what legislation is passed. And that's like
Mhm.
where we have to look to our history as a community. You know, I think like our ancestors survived a lot and learned how to exist in a world that was
Mhm.
so cruel to them. And I
Okay.
think that, you know, that's like just another artist that I think is just making a statement. And, you know, she could have probably hired anyone to open for her, and I'm sure there was probably pressure to have other artists, maybe other like more popular artists that are more aligned with her audience, quote unquote, open for her. But like she chose Bob the Drag Queen, and I think that's pretty
Specifically. That's amazing. You know, I think that especially an artist like a Madonna who has always been an ally. Madonna comes from a time, you know, Madonna's height of her career was during the AIDS epidemic, right? Madonna had Vogue and things of that nature that was like pop culture moments, you know, for the community where I'm sure that she has seen, you know, many community members pass on and so forth during that time period to now. So, you know, I feel like it's very intentional on her end. I mean, she also brought artists like Saucy Santana on stage, a Black queer gay male femme rapper, right? Who was hyper femme, truly femme. They're not doing it just to get, you know, cool points or clickbait. They're actually a femme, gay identifying male who was fully femme on stage with Madonna, right? So she's creating access and opportunities through that performative representation. Um, Now I want to elaborate further on how pop culture in the you know the I don't want to say the pawns, but the individuals of pop culture like celebrities, influencers, and so forth, how are they contributing to rainbow capitalism?
It's a good question. I think the way that they're
Like,
contributing,
what does that look like?
allowing venture capital to use their name and likeness to profit off the community without
Mm.
really centering the community. So I think again, it's like if
Ooh.
a business or like a entity is using a celebrity's name and likeness, the celebrity, you know, is a person. A celebrity has like their own personal values, the things that they stand for. And so
Mhm.
when these venture capitalists borrow these celebrity names and likenesses, it's a safe place for them to push certain agendas because they know the people that follow this particular celebrity, they're going to have these types of values. They're going to look
Mhm.
like this. They're going to be interested in these things. And so it's
Mhm.
a very strategic, manipulative way of venture capital to use celebrity name and likeness because for example there might be this like large fashion incubator that owns a lot of different brands, and let's say
Right.
one is like a celebrity face brand and one is just like a brand that, you know, your everyday
Sock
person
wear or athletic wear or something.
shops in athletic wear, like an Old Navy type brand or
Yeah.
whatever. You know, like there's more for them to lose by selling gender affirming garments or showing LGBTQ allyship in this more like general athletics wear brand because there's probably a lot of people who shop there that might not actually be pro LGBTQ. But if they do it under the umbrella of this celebrity's name and face, they know that they don't really have to risk anything. They know
Right.
that like the people that are going to be paying attention to this celebrity are already on board with this. So there's nothing to lose. There's only something to gain. Where if they
Mm.
launch that same product in one of their other brands, there would be a ton of backlash. Right.
Mm.
So
Mm.
that's how venture capital is really using celebrity likeness and image in order to target a certain consumer and
Right.
profit off of them, essentially.
Rainbow capitalism. Wow. Um, Moving on, that's the perfect segue for our next question here. So, your body, as a smaller brand looking to grow, expand, and collaborate with larger brands to keep LGBTQ identities at the forefront, how has your experience been?
It's been interesting. It's been challenging. I think, as venture capital recognizes like the buying power of the LGBTQ plus community, as they recognize the significant growth of the LGBTQ community, particularly amongst Gen Z and millennials, there's
Yes.
more interest
Mhm.
in kind of like stepping into the gender affirming clothing or gender inclusive clothing or queer inclusive clothing
Right.
space. That said, I think because a lot of these companies don't hire queer and trans folks or center queer and trans folks, they don't really know how to necessarily meet their needs. And so we've had some really interesting conversations and interactions with larger brands that
Mhm.
say we really want to get into this space, but we don't know how. We don't know the how to like connect with the community. We don't know the right questions to ask. We don't really um we're afraid we don't know how to go about this in the right way when it comes to
Mhm.
language. I think there's this recognition that you have to be thoughtful and intentional and with your language when it comes to like speaking to the queer and trans community and about queer and trans issues.
Right.
And I think that a lot of these big brands are struggling to figure out a way to do that themselves.
Mhm.
And then they're looking to brands like UrBody. They're looking to other smaller queer and trans owned brands to say, like, how are they doing it? Um,
Right.
and my hope was that they would look to these brands and say, like, we really want to invest in these brands and these communities and kind of like bring them into our ethos to expand access. Um,
Collaborate,
you
so
know,
forth. Yeah.
to collaborate with them, to
Yeah.
create opportunities for queer and trans folks to like to create jobs.
Right.
Imagine like if there was a gender affirming garments department within one of these larger fashion brands. I mean, that would be game changing and
That'd
life
be
changing.
great. Yeah.
But instead, these larger brands really just want to like sell garments that check a box that say like we're going to try and attempt to capture our part of the market, but we don't really feel the need to like deeply invest in the community by bringing them along in our journey, by centering them from the very beginning, by hiring trans designers, by doing extensive community research about what the community wants and why.
And essentially they see the trend and just want to follow and capitalize off of the trend to make money.
Yeah, that's been my experience so far. But the thing that has, I believe that we will get to a point where we can build that bridge. I think right now, like the political climate is really, really it's like it's just terrible. I think it's like really hard as a queer and trans brand to like kind of be seen as a liability to
How
somebody
to thrive. Yeah.
they're like, oh, like, do we want to work with UrBody? Like, are people gonna come after us because like we're working with a brand that sells gender affirming garments? Whereas, I
Yeah.
think we really want to get to a place where brands see that they should be serving everyone, right? Not just
Mhm.
cisgender men and cisgender women. Like when you're designing like a lace thong, something that's like feminine, why don't we design it for people with multiple body types and multiple body parts? Why are we making all of these assumptions? And I do believe that brands are going to get there, but I think the political climate and the backlash that we've seen this Pride Month is making it even harder.
Hmm.
And I think,
It isn't helping. Yeah.
Target's response to take, things off the shelves and to stop selling things from these queer and trans small owned businesses, I think like did not set a good example
Mm.
for other brands. I think what, we hope and we want is for these larger brands to really like stand by the community in their allyship, and say like, even if this makes some people upset, like we believe that this cause and these people are important and important to acknowledge and cater to and celebrate. And yeah, so that's been the experience. I know we're not alone as a brand, and we've
Mm.
had larger brands like place orders of full size runs of things that they're trying to kind of like learn from what we've done in order to create something of their own. And
Mhm.
it's disappointing and unfortunate, because I think that like I have poured my heart and soul into UrBody in this
Mhm.
community, and
Mhm.
have really like done my best to center the community at every step of the process. And so to see
Mhm.
larger brands kind of just want to like take that and run with it as their own without
Mhm.
centering community is really
And acknowledging.
disheartening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Oh, I'm so sorry that that's happening. Oh, well, any final thoughts on this conversation, or any questions for me as we wrap this up?
How was Trans Pride LA? I want to hear more about Trans Pride
Oh,
LA.
yes. Well, Trans Pride LA was amazing. I was honored to participate in the Trans Town Hall. We had that last Friday, this past Friday. And the Town Hall essentially was a gathering of several trans figures in the community, influencers, celebrities, and so forth, and also direct service workers and individuals who are just making strides in the community to come together and have a conversation about the current anti-LGBTQ and anti-trans and anti-drag legislation that's occurring right now, to talk about trans athlete equity in sports, and also talk about various ways that elected officials can, support the progress of trans legislation, right? And like, making that, putting that into action and actually helping the trans community. So what was so beautiful is that transness was literally centered for Trans Pride this year. And this year, this was the first year where they had like a round table panel discussion. So I was a part of the Center Your Advocacy conversation, and I just basically spoke about the work that I did at the LA LGBT Center in my former role as program coordinator for the National LGBTQ Institute on Intimate Partner Violence. Meaning that we basically offered state-of-the-art training and technical assistance to domestic violence service providers and shelters across the country, right? So I spoke about how we gave them 1 hour, 2 hour, and 5 hour trainings on how to be inclusive of LGBTQ survivors, right? We taught them about how to better their intake process, how to work on their messaging and tone, how to, have certain posters and things of that nature in their facilities, right? How to understand the gender and sexuality spectrum, how to understand pronouns. So, we went through like a full thing in my former role. So that was an honor to speak about that. And also I spoke about how trans resources are still necessary because right now there is an attack on our community. So I spoke to that piece of it. And yeah, we had a lot of great faces in communities such as Isis King and Laith Ashley and Cece Tefler, a trans athlete who was dealing with something right now where she was literally robbed of her opportunity to compete in the Olympics next year, right? So she spoke about that and how she's navigating that. So overall, it was a great necessary space. Um, and it was an honor to be a part of that conversation. And also the individual who's the rep for Montana, the trans femme rep, is their name Zoe? I believe that's
Oh,
their
yeah.
name. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Zoe was there and spoke about that particular situation, which is like a national ordeal right now in our country. So it was just an honor, and it was moderated and hosted. Overall, the overall MC was Raquel Willis, a Black trans journalist who was doing amazing work out here. So it was just an honor. It was an honor to be a part of that conversation because I'm also working on my journalism career right now. So, so yeah, thank you for asking. It was fun. It was great. It was
Well,
wonderful.
appreciate you sharing and all the work that you're doing. And I think there's something to be said for initiatives that are by and for the community and really center the community. And I think, like maybe a good way to close us out today is when it comes to rainbow capitalism, like a lot of times there's a lack of authenticity. And
Mm,
our community has taken care of one another for so long that we know when something is by and for the community, and we
right.
know whether or not someone's just making an effort and trying to trying to see us, trying to understand us versus what it
Yeah.
feels like to really be like held by our community. And so, I think that we just have to move forward through this tough time
Mhm.
politically and socially, like knowing that like our community has taken care of each other for decades and centuries and will continue to do so. And I think the By Us For Us initiatives are where we're going to see the most magic happen over the course of the foreseeable future.
I'm so excited. And honestly, I just hope that we continue to thrive in this dark, weird time that we're in. I just feel like we're in a very chaotic time. Like it's very like fight energy right now, you know? And I think every figure in this community, from our direct service supporters to our journalists who are trans, to our celebrities who are, you know, trans influencers and so forth, to our staff, you know, our workers and so forth, our therapists who are non-binary and trans, we just really have to center each other right now and lift each other up, honestly, and continue to, you know, support the By Us For Us model and so forth, and keep it going. And also familiarize ourselves with all of these bills right now, because I think that's another thing that we have to really delve into. So yeah, thank you so much. Can you let everyone know where to find you on social media, and also where to find UrBody on the socials?
So you can find UrBody at UrBody Co, UrBodyCo. You can find me, Mayor Abrams, at Mayor There, at MERETHEIR. And you can check out our website, www.yourbody.co, and get yourself some good gender affirming essentials.
Yes, I need to go buy me some things, because honey, these Target panties are cutting me up. That's TMI. But anyways, a mess. I'm a mess. Thank you all for supporting. Also, make sure to follow me at Kaleef Now. My Instagram and Twitter is KALEEFNOW, Kaleef Now. Same for the YouTube channel, KALEEFNOW. And this is another episode of the Perfect Blend Podcast, Pride Series, Episode 3. Please remember, if you are on YouTube, to comment down below. Let us know your thoughts on this conversation. Like, comment, engage at the bottom. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know what we can do and so forth. Just interact, you know, interact, talk with us, and share with a friend. And thank you for watching.
Support Kaleef and all the great work she's doing.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. We will see you all
having
next time. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Oh yeah, I want to tell you, Mayor, thank you for being here and taking the time. I'm so sorry. Thank you for being here and like sharing your time. I know you are like a very busy person. You have like a family.
Ever since our paths crossed, it's been a pleasure to spend time and share space with you, Kaleef. And this will be, you know,
I
one of
appreciate
many.
it. Yes, I'm looking forward to future things with you. And thank you once again for providing this opportunity for my small podcast, because it's difficult. It's difficult to get people on. So I'm just really honored that you were so excited to come on, and you were very like, I want to come to your show. I want to come to your show. Thank you. Because it's tough out here, you know, me being independent. I don't have any producers. I don't have any like co-hosts.
You're doing it, and I'm here to support it, all of it. All right.
Thank you. I appreciate it, because this is a one-woman show. So awesome. Well, we'll see you all next time. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Thanks, Kaleef.